Hello, everybody. You may have heard already that Ursula von der Leyen was in Turkey to talk to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and she had a little malheur. She was trying to sit down near the flag, the European Union flag, which signals that, of course, we are not a nation, and at the same time, we are a nation now. And she could not get a seat because that was already taken by Mr. Charles Michel, who is the head of the European Council. Now, that shows a lot about the European Union, but of course, the feminists jumped in first, and therefore, the entire conversation is now over whether Recep Tayyip Erdogan tried to shame her for being a woman. That's, of course, batshit crazy. He was following the protocol, but that is not the full story. He had the intent of shaming her, but not as a woman. I will go to that later. He was actually trying to make a point of showcasing us something about the European Union that is a worthwhile consideration. So the seat was taken by Charles Michel, and the media and the feminists, they make it out to be that the guys have taken the center spot in the room, besides the marvelous flags. And Ursula von der Leyen had to resort to sitting down on a sofa because she is a woman. That notion is obviously wrong for an important reason. There was no way for Mr. Erdogan to tell in advance who was entering the room first, Mr. Michel or Mrs. von der Leyen, and who is going to take what seat. At least, I mean, there was one seat, obviously, for the European Union, but he could not tell if Mr. Michel would take that seat or Ms. von der Leyen. So the attempt of shaming her for being a woman was most certainly not on the table. But Turkey showed something else, and that is mainly that they don't know with whom they actually try to negotiate what. And those were the points they had on the agenda. The refugee deal had to be renewed, or they want to renew it. That is the deal that Turkey is to take care of the refugees that come to their country, and they are not supposed to channel them to Europe. Of course, that's not working, but he is receiving a lot of money in return, and this new deal is supposed to also come with additional money from the European Union. Then there is the modernization of the customs union. You remember how trade barriers were a big deal after Brexit, how everybody claimed that you can either have everything or nothing, and blah, blah, blah. And of course, that's garbage. We also had a trade deal with Turkey already, and that is now modernized, or they tried, the agenda was that they tried to modernize the customs union with Turkey. And then they wanted to revitalize the negotiations over a liberalization of the visa process with Turkey, which I'm also utterly opposed. I see already what direction that takes in terms of immigration. And there is a crisis between Greece and Turkey in the Aegean Sea. There are some disputed islands, and are also now some resources. I think they have found some natural resources on the coasts of Turkey and Greece, and it is not quite clear who is going to dig where. I think the official international law so far is more in favor of Greece, but anyways, that's part of the negotiation material. That's a lot on the table, and the actual issue, and that what is shown on that on that footage is, it isn't clear actually who is responsible for all of these things at once. So there was a lot on the table, and maybe too much on the table. And the one thing that Turkey made clear with their set up with this two chairs, one for Turkey and one for the EU, was that it is too much to actually to be negotiated with only one representative, and it is unclear who is actually responsible for what talking point. So obviously, Greece would be responsible for the Aegean Sea, so maybe the Greek president should visit, and actually parallel to that, the Greek and the Turkish side are negotiating. So it wasn't quite clear why that was on the table, on the agenda to begin with. And for the other items, it becomes even more murky who is responsible for what. Mr. Michel, the guy who ultimately took the seat, is the president of the European Council. The European Council is the assembly of the heads of government. That is different from the heads of state. The heads of state in Europe, that can be some ceremonial role, like the Queen of England or the President of Germany, largely ceremonial roles that don't have real influence. A head of government would be something like Angela Merkel, the Chancellor, or Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, etc., prime ministers. So in other words, they are the representation of a federal element of the European Union. So it's like the states, the governments who are elected by the people for usually different purposes. This is my big criticism. They come together and as a council they are supposed to speak in one voice. And Mr. Charles Michel, he is the representative of that meetup of the assembly. Ursula von der Leyen was selected by the European Parliament. That's an entirely different kettle of fish, and nobody really knows and nobody can really tell what functions are now ultimately taken by the Commission, what functions are ultimately taken by the heads of state, which functions are taken by the Parliament. And there are 7 different major institutions, according to Wikipedia, that ultimately constitute the European Union. And this overlap constitutes a major issue, not only for Turkey, but far more for us, the citizens, because we can't really say with what tag on the ballot we affect what political change. It is impossible to actually say what how we as the citizens can affect our future, how we can direct the path of our nations. And there's nobody that can be held accountable for anything. And that is what Mr. Erdogan pointed out so nicely here. Who is actually taking the seat and who is it taking for what? It isn't about having a monarch. Actually, I am going the entire opposite direction. I want the most control for the smallest government. Okay, the most control for the thinnest government. And they usually go the opposite direction. And we have this maze. Look at these organigrams, for example. That is from the Wikipedia page, where I've said they're pointing out 7 major institutions, and those are the relationships. Oh, and also those are the relationships. And those are the relationships. And if you're lucky, you can make any sense out of these diagrams, but it is most likely that you don't. And nobody does. When Brexit was debated in the United Kingdom, you heard from the Remainer side, oh, you guys who don't even know what the European Union is. And they were proud about this, that there is this total lack of accountability, the total lack of transparency. Nobody knows who's actually responsible for what, and what do I actually vote to get somebody into an office, and who do I actually vote out of the office by what means, and how can I organize a majority to affect what change. This is something the Remainers were terribly proud of. So proud to be the side that did not admit to not understand what the hell is actually going on. And the staple of the European Union is that it relies on people who are too narcissists to admit that they don't understand anything anymore, and that there is absolutely no way of getting hold of any official to advance anything or to at least stop doing something. And this lack of transparency, when it's brought to the front, it is usually used as a further excuse to even gain more power and to centralize more things. So instead of saying, oh, well, it is too messy, maybe we have too many institutions, we have too many responsibilities, maybe we should, put that back into the hands of the national states so that people can negotiate those things on the national level again, because they share the same language, for example. They say, no, let's just move all offices that have to do with one topic into one building. And you have an entire quarter in Brussels that is assigned to the European Union. It's basically our Versailles now. The underlying issue that no matter how you cut apart the political responsibilities into different offices and buildings and so on, that you actually have to let people vote on politics, on who gets what job. Those issues are never really resolved on the European Union level. There's only this parliament that is directly elected, and everything else is not, and the parliament, I mean, the way it is elected is also not quite satisfying. The parliament ultimately just serves as a fig leaf to amass ever more responsibilities on the European Union level, and to say, well, we have something democratic. You made some tick on some ballot at some point. The criticism that this parliament is not elected in a way that people can understand, and that they are not satisfied with delegates from the parliament to do stuff they don't even trace anymore, because, I mean, hell, there are so many institutions now, and for too many people, that is not satisfying. But it is presented in the media as you must be satisfied already, so now shut up. I think this overall mindset that there are no responsibilities whatsoever, and that the people should not even have control, should not even take interest in who does what in politics. That is voiced quite nicely by Angela Merkel in one show about European Union politics. And she said there in this show a sentence that struck me in my bones, and that was, do we need to know what politics does? Somebody was asking her, it was a town hall style show, and some random person, but of course with a question that was introduced before the show even started, and but some random person that nobody can trace asked something about how the European Union does not sell itself very well, blah blah blah, and she said, well, one thing you should say, the first thing you should consider is, and then she phrased this question: do we really want to know what politics does?
Die erste Frage ist ja: Muss man eigentlich immer wissen, was Politik macht? Wissen Sie, was ich den ganzen Tag mache?
So we have a political class that does not want you to know what politics does, that doesn't want you to look at it. And I think that sentence is telling insofar that it treats politics as a black box. So you're not supposed to look into politics. It's a subject. It's something you are not supposed to have an understanding of. And secondly, does. It's not even a refined verb. It's just, don't look at the subject, don't look at politics, and also don't look at the does. So what exactly is the activity of that object? It's all a black box, and it's very confusing. And I think the institutions of the European Union are designed to be confusing. So all these Remainers who pointed to the Brexiteers and said, haha, you don't even understand how the European Union works, they don't know it either. Maybe I should end this video with a quote attributed to Henry Kissinger, and that is, who do I call if I want to call Europe? That quote is assigned to him by like every single EU course, like everything they ever present to the public. This is constantly quoted, and it is not, he never said it. It is not authentic. Mr. Kissinger did not want to call Europe. He didn't want a unified Europe. And usually this quote is only exploited, this pseudo quote, this made up quote, is exploited to amass ever more responsibilities in the hand of ever fewer people. Instead of, putting the responsibilities back to the nations where it can be controlled. And I think this is very well exposed by the setup from the Turkish side, because we don't actually lack a phone number, as these people try to tell themselves with this stupid quote. It is rather that we have too many phone numbers or too many bums not finding a chair. And this was very well exposed by Mr. Erdogan. So for that, I'm thankful. This is one time you will mark on the calendar that I agree with Erdogan. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon. Bye.